In a seemingly perfect small-town marriage, Sam discovers his wife Hannah's affair with another man, shattering the foundation of their 15-year relationship. As the betrayal unfolds, viewers are pulled into a whirlwind of lies, confrontations, and emotional turmoil. From secret rendezvous to manipulative attempts by Hannah's lover to sabotage their family, the story explores the raw pain of infidelity and the ripple effects on trust and family. Each revelation raises the stakes, leaving the audience enraged at the betrayal and questioning whether love and forgiveness can survive such devastating deceit. Welcome back, and thank you for tuning in to the Cheating Diaries. We appreciate each and every one of you. Let us know in the comments where you're watching from today. Now buckle up, because today's story will take you on an emotional roller coaster you won't forget. It was the summer of 2017 in the small but bustling town of Clearwater. Picture it: tree-lined streets, cozy coffee shops, and that perfect mix of small-town charm with just a hint of big-city ambition. Life here was predictable, almost comforting in its routine, except for one family whose world was about to be turned upside down. At the heart of it all was Sam Carter, a 38-year-old electrician. Sam was the kind of guy you'd call reliable to a fault. Need your wiring fixed? He's there. Stuck with a flat tire at midnight? He's got you. Married to his high school sweetheart, Hannah, for 15 years, Sam was the definition of a family man. His weekends were spent coaching his son's Little League games or fixing up their modest home on Elmwood Street. Life wasn't perfect, whose is? But to Sam, it was solid, comfortable. Then there was Hannah. At 36, she was the epitome of the perfect wife on paper. She worked part-time as a freelance graphic designer, which let her juggle PTA meetings, bake sales, and her personal passion for yoga. She had a warm smile and a knack for making everyone feel welcome, so much so that no one ever suspected the cracks forming beneath the surface. Their two kids, 12-year-old Josh and 7-year-old Emma, were the glue holding everything together. Josh, all elbows and enthusiasm, idolized his dad, while Emma was a miniature version of her mom, right down to the way she scrunched her nose when she was deep in thought. To the outside world, the Carters were a picture-perfect family, the kind you'd envy at barbecues. But as we all know, appearances can be deceiving. The story really begins one warm Tuesday evening in early July. Sam had just come home from a grueling 10-hour shift. His shoulders ached, his hands were covered in grime, and all he wanted was a hot meal and a cold beer. As he walked into the house, though, something felt off. The kids were in the living room, unusually quiet, glued to their screens. The air felt tense, like the calm before a storm. "Hannah?" Sam called out, setting his tool bag down. "I'm home." Her voice drifted in from the kitchen, light and cheerful. "In here." When he walked in, he found her stirring a pot of spaghetti sauce, her hair tied up in a messy bun. She looked like any other day, but Sam's gut told him something was different. Maybe it was the way she avoided his eyes when he kissed her cheek, or how she quickly changed the subject when he asked how her day was. They ate dinner as a family, and on the surface, everything seemed normal. Josh rambled on about his upcoming baseball game, while Emma giggled over some silly story about her stuffed animals, but Sam couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Later that night, as they lay in bed, he finally asked, "Is everything okay? You've seemed distracted lately." Hannah hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, before plastering on her reassuring smile. "I'm fine, Sam, just tired, busy with a client project, you know how it is." Sam nodded, but the unease lingered, and as he drifted off to sleep, he didn't notice Hannah lying awake next to him, staring at the ceiling, her lips pressed into a thin line. The next few weeks followed the same pattern. Sam buried himself in work, trying to shake the nagging feeling that something was amiss. Meanwhile, Hannah seemed different. It was subtle at first, little things, like how she started dressing up more, even on days she was supposedly working from home, or how her phone, once left lying around the house, was now always by her side, its screen flipped down. Then there were the yoga classes. Twice a week, Hannah would grab her mat and head out, saying she needed time for herself. Sam didn't think much of it at first. After all, everyone needs their own space. But one evening, As he passed by the studio on his way home, he noticed something odd. The lights were off, and the parking lot was empty. Maybe the class ended early, he told himself, brushing it off, but the seed of doubt had been planted. It wasn't until a Saturday afternoon that everything began to unravel. Sam had been cleaning out the garage when his neighbor Mike stopped by. Mike was a talker, always eager to share the latest neighborhood gossip. That day, though, his words hit Sam like a punch to the gut. "Hey, I saw Hannah the other night," Mike said casually. "Didn't know she was such a fan of Italian food." Sam frowned. "What do you mean?" "Oh, I just spotted her at Bella's downtown. Thought you guys were having a date night or something." Sam's stomach tightened. He hadn't been to Bella's in months. "Oh, must have been a work thing," he said quickly, forcing a smile. But as Mike walked away, the doubt in Sam's mind grew louder. That night, Sam couldn't focus. He tried to watch TV, but the words from Mike kept echoing in his head. When Hannah went to bed early, claiming a headache, Sam saw his chance. Heart pounding, he grabbed her phone from the counter, telling himself it was probably nothing. But as he scrolled through her messages, his heart sank. There it was, a string of texts to a contact saved as Lila Yoga. The messages were vague but undeniably flirtatious. Lines like, "I can't wait to see you again," and "Last night was amazing," stared back at him, mocking the life he thought he had. His hands shook as he set the phone down. He felt like the ground had been ripped out from under him. But instead of confronting her right away, Sam did something unexpected. He decided to wait, to watch, to gather proof. And so began Sam's quiet investigation, a journey that would reveal not just the extent of Hannah's betrayal, but also the tangled web of lies that had been woven right under his nose. Sam had never thought of himself as a detective, but over the following days, he became one armed with nothing more than a nagging gut feeling. And the texts he'd seen, he began piecing together the puzzle of Hannah's betrayal. His first step was subtle. He started paying closer attention to her routines. Every time she claimed she was heading to yoga or working on a project, he noted the times, her tone, and even her choice of outfit. One Tuesday evening, while Hannah was supposedly at a late client meeting, Sam decided to follow her. It was a decision that felt ridiculous in the moment. After all, wasn't he the husband who trusted his wife implicitly? But that trust had been shaken, and curiosity outweighed his hesitation. Parking a discreet distance away from their house, Sam waited. It wasn't long before he saw Hannah's car pull out of the driveway. She wasn't dressed for yoga this time. Instead, she wore a sleek black dress and heels, the kind of outfit she used to save for their anniversary dinners. His chest tightened as he started his truck and followed her, careful to keep a safe distance. She drove downtown, her car weaving through the streets with a sense of purpose. Sam's heart pounded as he watched her pull into the parking lot of Bella's, the same Italian restaurant Mike had mentioned. He parked across the street, his hands gripping the wheel as he saw her step out of the car. A tall, dark-haired man emerged from the shadows and greeted her with an embrace that was far too intimate to be platonic. Sam sat frozen, his worst fears confirmed. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Hannah wasn't just seeing someone else. She was building a life outside of their marriage, piece by piece. The next morning, Sam woke up feeling like he hadn't slept at all. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her with the stranger. The embrace, the way she smiled at him. It wasn't the Hannah he knew. Or maybe it was, and he just hadn't been paying attention. But Sam wasn't the type to confront someone without having all the facts. He spent the day at work replaying every interaction he'd had with Hannah over the past few months. The signs were there, the secrecy, the late nights, the sudden obsession with her appearance. He just hadn't wanted to see them. That evening, while Hannah was upstairs tucking the kids into bed, Sam decided to dig deeper. He remembered the texts to Lila Yoga and wondered if the name was just a cover for whoever that man was. Using the same phone password he'd seen Hannah enter 100 times, he unlocked her phone again. This time, he didn't stop at the texts. He checked her email, her social media messages, anything that might give him more answers, and he found them, pictures of her and the man. His name was Ryan, according to the emails, at Bella's, on hikes, even in what looked like a cozy Airbnb cabin in the mountains. Sam's stomach churned as he realized just how far this had gone. Hannah hadn't just been sneaking around. She'd been building an entire world where he and the kids didn't exist. At this point, the cracks in their marriage couldn't be ignored. Sam knew he had to confront her, but how he couldn't just blurt out what he knew, not with the kids in the house, and he wasn't sure he could keep his emotions in check long enough to have a rational conversation. So, he waited. For days, he played the role of the oblivious husband, even as his resentment bubbled beneath the surface. He went to work, helped Josh with his baseball practice, and read Emma her bedtime stories. But every time he looked at Hannah, all he could see was the woman in those pictures with Ryan. Finally, the moment came. It was a Friday night, and the kids were at a sleepover. Sam decided he couldn't put it off any longer. As they sat across from each other at the kitchen table, he broke the silence. "Hannah," he said, his voice steady but firm, "we need to talk." She looked up from her plate, surprised by his tone. "Okay, what's going on?" "I know," he said, meeting her eyes. "About Ryan. About the lies, all of it." For a moment, Hannah looked like she might deny it, but then her shoulders slumped and the facade crumbled. She covered her face with her hands, and when she looked back up, there were tears in her eyes. "I never meant for it to go this far," she whispered. "I didn't want to hurt you." Sam's jaw tightened. "Didn't want to hurt me? You've been lying to me for months, maybe longer, and don't even get me started on what this could do to Josh and Emma." I was unhappy," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I felt stuck, Sam. Like I was just going through the motions, and I didn't know how to tell you." "So you just decided to go behind my back instead, to destroy everything we built together?" His voice rose, despite his best efforts to stay calm. "I didn't mean to destroy anything," she said, tears streaming down her face now. "I didn't even know how to stop once it started." The room fell silent as Sam stared at her, trying to process everything she'd said. He wanted to yell, to demand answers, to make her feel the pain she'd caused him. But more than that, he wanted to understand how their marriage had reached this breaking point. Over the next few days, the tension in the house was unbearable. Sam and Hannah barely spoke, and when they did, it was only about the kids. Neither of them wanted to make a decision about what came next. Not yet. Sam, however, couldn't let it go. He needed more answers, more closure. So, he reached out to someone who might give him a clearer picture of what he was dealing with. Ryan. And that's where things got interesting. Before we dive into what happens next, let me remind you to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. If you're enjoying the story so far, your support means the world to us, and it helps us bring you more stories like this one. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. What would you do if you were in Sam's shoes? Sam's decision to confront Ryan was not made lightly. For days, he wrestled with the idea: should he let the man know he was aware of the affair? Should he confront him in person? Or let the situation play out without interference? Eventually, Sam's need for answers won out. If he was going to figure out how his life had unraveled, he needed to hear Ryan's side of the story. On a quiet Wednesday afternoon, Sam found himself parked outside Ryan's workplace, a sleek, modern office building in the city's downtown district. He had done some basic research online to confirm Ryan's identity and learned that he was a regional sales manager for a tech company, a far cry from Sam's own blue-collar roots. As the workday came to an end, Sam spotted Ryan exiting the building. He was tall, well-dressed, and carried himself with a confidence that Sam immediately disliked. Gritting his teeth, Sam stepped out of his truck and approached him. "Ryan?" he called out, his voice steady but firm. Ryan turned, his expression one of confusion at first. "Yeah, that's me. Do I know you?" Sam took a deep breath. "You don't, but you know my wife Hannah." The color drained from Ryan's face as realization dawned. "Look, man, Save it," Sam interrupted, his voice sharp. "I'm not here to fight, I just want answers." Ryan hesitated, glancing around nervously. "This isn't the place to talk about something like this." "Fine, there's a coffee shop around the corner. Let's go." The coffee shop was quiet, with only a handful of customers scattered at the tables. Sam and Ryan sat across from each other, The tension between them thick enough to cut with a knife. Ryan fidgeted with his coffee cup, while Sam stared him down, waiting for him to speak. "Look," Ryan finally said. "I'm sorry I didn't know about you at first. Hannah didn't tell me she was married." Sam's jaw tightened. "And when you did find out?" Ryan looked away. "It was too late by then. We had feelings for each other." "Feelings," Sam repeated, his voice laced with bitterness. "You had feelings for a woman who was married, with kids." Ryan had the decency to look ashamed. "I didn't plan for it to happen. Neither of us did, but it just did." Sam leaned forward, his voice low and steady. "How long?" Ryan hesitated, then answered, "About 6 months." The weight of those words hit Sam like a punch to the gut. 6 months of lies, 6 months of betrayal. "And what now?" Sam asked, his voice cracking slightly, despite his best efforts to stay composed. "What's your plan? Were you planning to steal her away from her family, or were you just going to keep sneaking around?" Ryan sighed. "I don't know. I've been trying to figure that out. I care about her, but I didn't want to ruin her life, or yours." Sam shook his head, his hands clenched into fists. "You already have." The confrontation with Ryan left Sam feeling both drained and oddly vindicated. While the man's explanations didn't absolve Hannah of her betrayal, they gave Sam a clearer picture of what he was dealing with. He knew now that the affair wasn't just a fleeting mistake. It was a deliberate choice, sustained over months. When he returned home that evening, Hannah was waiting for him in the living room. Her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen from crying. She had clearly been waiting for this moment. "Sam," she began, her voice trembling, "we need to talk." "Yeah, we do," he replied, his tone cold. He sat down across from her, the distance between them feeling symbolic of the emotional chasm that had formed over the past few weeks. "I know you've been talking to Ryan," she said quietly. "He told me." "Good," Sam said. "At least he's honest about something." Hannah flinched at his words but didn't argue. Instead, she took a deep breath and began to speak. "I messed up, Sam. I know that I let myself believe that this thing with Ryan was an escape from all the things I felt were missing in our marriage. But I was wrong, I see that now." Sam folded his arms, his expression unreadable. "And what exactly was missing, Hannah? What made you throw away 15 years of marriage and 2 kids for this escape?" She hesitated, her voice breaking as she said, "I felt invisible, Sam. Like I was just going through the motions, day after day. You were always working, always focused on providing for us, and I let myself believe that you didn't see me anymore." Sam's chest tightened, anger bubbling beneath the surface. "So your solution was to betray me, to betray our family?" Tears streamed down her face as she whispered, "I wasn't thinking clearly. I made a mistake. A horrible mistake." For a moment, neither of them spoke. The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of everything that had been said and everything that hadn't. Finally, Sam stood up. "I need time to think about what this means, about what comes next." "Please, Sam," Hannah said, her voice desperate. "Don't give up on us. I'll do whatever it takes to fix this, I swear." But Sam didn't respond. He walked out the door, the sound of it closing, echoing through the house like a final punctuation mark on their broken relationship. As Sam drove aimlessly through the quiet streets of Clearwater, his mind raced with questions. Could he forgive Hannah? Did he even want to? And what about the kids? How could he shield them from the fallout of this disaster? Eventually, he found himself parked outside a familiar house. It belonged to his best friend, Mark, a man he had known since childhood. Mark was the kind of friend who always gave it to you straight, no sugarcoating. When Sam knocked on the door, Mark answered almost immediately. "Hey man, you look like hell. What's going on?" Sam hesitated, then said, "I need to talk. It's about Hannah." Mark's expression grew serious as he stepped aside to let Sam in. Over the next hour, Sam poured out everything. Hannah's affair, the confrontation with Ryan, the emotional whirlwind he was now navigating. Mark listened intently, nodding occasionally, but letting Sam vent without interruption. When Sam finally finished, Mark leaned back in his chair and said, "Man, I don't even know what to say." That's rough, but you've got to ask yourself one question. What do you want? Sam frowned. What do you mean? I mean, do you want to try and fix things? Or is this the end of the line for you and Hannah? Because until you figure that out, you're just spinning your wheels. Sam sighed, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, part of me wants to walk away and never look back, but then I think about the kids, and I don't know if I can do that to them. Mark nodded thoughtfully. The kids complicate things, no doubt, but don't make this decision just for them. Whatever you decide, it's got to be something you can live with. Meanwhile, back at home, Hannah was grappling with her own emotions. She spent hours replaying the choices that had led her to this point, trying to understand why she had jeopardized everything she held dear. For the first time in months, she saw her actions for what they were: selfish and destructive. Hannah knew she couldn't undo the past, but she was determined to fight for her family. She began looking for therapists in the area, hoping to start marriage counseling if Sam was willing. She also drafted a heartfelt letter to Sam, pouring out her remorse and promising to do whatever it took to make things right. But as the days passed, Sam's silence weighed heavily on her. She knew he was wrestling with his own pain, and she could only hope that he would find it in his heart to give her and their marriage a second chance. Before we uncover what happens next, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more stories like this one. What would you do in Sam's position? Let us know in the comments below. For the next week, Sam kept his distance from Hannah, staying at Mark's house to sort through his emotions. Each night, he replayed their conversation, trying to reconcile the woman he had loved for 15 years with the one who had betrayed him. Was their relationship worth saving, or was it too far gone? And what would forgiveness even look like if he could muster it? At the same time, Hannah was making her own attempts to bridge the growing chasm between them. She texted him updates about the kids, sent messages apologizing, and even reached out to Mark, asking him to encourage Sam to come home. But Sam remained silent, caught between the love he still felt for his family and the deep hurt that consumed him. The tension came to a head one Friday evening, when Sam returned to the house to pick up some clothes. The kids were at a friend's house, leaving Sam and Hannah alone. She greeted him cautiously, standing in the doorway of the kitchen, her hands nervously clutching a dish towel. Sam, she began softly, I know you don't want to talk to me, but I just need to say something. Sam sighed, setting his duffel bag down. Go ahead. Hannah took a deep breath, her eyes brimming with tears. I know I've broken your trust, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, or maybe ever, but I can't let us fall apart without trying. I've contacted a counselor. I think we need help, both of us. Sam's face remained stoic as she spoke. Counseling, huh? You think that's going to fix this? I don't know, she admitted, but I have to try for us, for the kids. For a moment, Sam didn't respond. The weight of her words hung in the air, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the refrigerator. Finally, he said, I'll think about it. It wasn't the resolution Hannah had hoped for, but it was enough to give her a sliver of hope. She watched as Sam gathered his things and left, the sound of the door closing behind him echoing through the empty house. While Sam wrestled with his decision, another confrontation was brewing, this time between Hannah and Ryan. After their relationship had been exposed, Ryan had been keeping his distance, giving her space to deal with the fallout, but when she didn't return his calls or respond to his messages, he decided to show up at her house unannounced. Hannah was startled to see him standing on her porch late one evening, a bouquet of flowers in hand. Ryan, she said, her voice laced with tension. What are you doing here? I needed to see you, he said, stepping closer. You haven't answered my calls. I wanted to make sure you're okay. Hannah shook her head, glancing nervously at the street to see if any neighbors were watching. You shouldn't be here. Why not? Ryan asked, his tone soft but insistent. Hannah, I care about you. I know things are messy right now, but we can get through this. Together. Hannah's expression hardened. There is no together, Ryan. Whatever we had, it's over. Ryan looked stunned, the bouquet drooping in his hand. You don't mean that? I do, she said firmly. I've made enough mistakes. I need to fix my marriage. for my family's sake. Ryan stared at her for a long moment, his jaw tightening. And what about what we had? Was that just a mistake to you? Yes, she said, her voice unwavering. It was a mistake, and it's one I'll regret for the rest of my life. Without another word, she closed the door, leaving Ryan standing on the porch. Inside, she leaned against the door, her hands trembling. Ending things with Ryan was a step she knew she had to take, but it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. Meanwhile, Sam was struggling with his own confrontation, this time with himself. Late one night, as he sat alone in Mark's living room, he pulled out a notebook and began writing. He wrote about the moment he met Hannah in high school, the years they spent building their life together, and the joy he felt when their children were born. He also wrote about the betrayal, the anger, and the deep sense of loss that now consumed him. As the words poured out, Sam began to realize that his pain wasn't just about Hannah's affair. It was about the life they had built together, the memories, the milestones, the shared dreams that now felt tainted. And yet, as much as he wanted to hate her, a part of him still loved her. That realization scared him more than anything. The following week, Sam finally agreed to meet with the counselor Hannah had found. The session was tense and emotional, with both of them airing their grievances and pain. Hannah admitted to feeling neglected and unseen, while Sam expressed his anger and heartbreak over her betrayal. "I don't know if I can forgive you," Sam said at one point, his voice breaking, "and I don't know if I even want to try." "I understand," Hannah replied, tears streaming down her face. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn your forgiveness, even if it takes the rest of my life." The counselor encouraged them to focus on open communication and small steps toward rebuilding trust. It was a long road ahead, but for the first time in weeks, Sam felt a glimmer of hope, not for their marriage, but for the possibility of finding closure, one way or another. At the same time, Ryan wasn't taking Hannah's rejection well. In a moment of desperation, he showed up at Sam's workplace, hoping to sway him with his own version of events. Sam was in the middle of repairing a circuit when he turned around to see Ryan standing in the doorway of the workshop. "You've got some nerve," Sam said, setting down his tools. "I'm not here to fight," Ryan said quickly. I wanted to talk." Sam crossed his arms, glaring at him. "You've said enough." Ryan hesitated, then blurted out, "I love her, Sam, and I think she loves me too." The words hit Sam like a slap to the face, but he kept his composure. "You think? Well, let me tell you something. Ryan, love isn't sneaking around behind someone's back. Love isn't tearing apart a family. You don't know the first thing about love." Ryan opened his mouth to respond, but Sam cut him off. "You need to leave now, and if you ever come near me or my family again, you'll regret it." Ryan's expression darkened, but he didn't argue. He turned and walked away, leaving Sam standing in the workshop, his hands trembling with anger. Later that evening, Sam shared the encounter with Mark, who couldn't hide his frustration. "That guy's got a lot of gall," Mark said, shaking his head. "You've been more patient than I would have been." Sam sighed. "I'm just trying to figure out what's best for the kids. They didn't ask for any of this." Mark nodded, his tone softening. "No, they didn't, but don't forget about what's best for you too." As the weeks went on, Sam and Hannah continued attending counseling sessions. Slowly but surely, they began to find common ground, not as a couple, but as co-parents who wanted the best for their children. They agreed to take things one day at a time, focusing on rebuilding trust and communication. But the road to healing was far from smooth. There were moments of anger, tears, and doubt, as well as moments of connection that reminded them of the bond they once shared. Whether that bond was enough to rebuild their marriage remained to be seen, but for now, they were both willing to try. Before we get to the resolution, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. We love hearing your thoughts, so drop a comment below. What do you think Sam and Hannah should do? Stay tuned as we approach the emotional conclusion of this story. Hannah's attempt to rebuild her marriage wasn't just a matter of words, it required action, and she knew that she began making deliberate changes in her behavior. She stopped her late-night phone calls and canceled her yoga membership, fully committing to transparency. She gave Sam complete access to her phone and emails, something that felt invasive but necessary to rebuild his trust. But trust, as they both learned, was far harder to rebuild than it had been to destroy. One evening, during their counseling session, the topic shifted to their future. The counselor asked a question that neither of them was ready for. What does reconciliation look like for you, and do you both want the same outcome? Sam leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a deep frown etched on his face. Honestly, I don't know. Every time I think about what happened, it feels like a slap in the face all over again. How do I know it won't happen again? Hannah's eyes filled with tears, but her voice was steady. You don't. And I hate that I can't promise you with absolute certainty. But what I can do is prove to you every single day that I'm here, that I'm committed to us. Sam looked away, the weight of her words pressing down on him. The counselor intervened gently. Trust isn't built on words alone. It's built on consistent actions. It's okay if you're not ready to make a decision yet. What matters is that you're both still here, willing to try. That night, as they drove home in silence, Sam couldn't help but wonder if trying was enough. Was love enough to bridge the gap that betrayal had carved between them? Meanwhile, Ryan's persistence hadn't wavered. After being shut out by both Hannah and Sam, he decided to make one final, desperate move. Late one evening, he sent Hannah an email, long, emotional, and pleading. In it, he detailed his feelings for her, his belief that their connection was special, and his frustration at being cast aside after everything they had shared. Hannah read the email with trembling hands, her heart racing as she considered the implications of responding. She knew that any reply, even one to firmly shut him down, could reignite the chaos she was trying so hard to leave behind. So, she made a choice. She deleted the email without responding and immediately told Sam about it. Ryan emailed me, she said that night as they sat in the living room, the kids asleep upstairs. Her voice was calm, but her expression was serious. I didn't reply, and I won't. I just thought you should know. Sam's jaw tightened. What did he say? She hesitated before answering. A lot of emotional stuff. Basically, he wants me to reconsider, but I'm not going to. He doesn't matter. You do. For the first time, Sam felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in weeks. Relief. Her honesty, while painful, was a step in the right direction. The turning point came during a family gathering at Hannah's parents' house. It was Josh's birthday, and the house was filled with laughter, balloons, and the smell of freshly baked cake. For a few hours, everything felt almost normal. Sam and Hannah managed to interact without tension, focusing on making the day special for their son. But as the party wound down and the kids began playing with their new toys, Sam found himself alone on the back porch with Hannah's father. Greg was a quiet, no-nonsense kind of man who rarely involved himself in others' affairs. But that day, he decided to speak up. You've been through hell, Sam, Greg said, lighting a cigar and offering one to Sam, who declined. And I don't blame you if you're still angry. Sam sighed, leaning against the railing. It's not just anger, Greg. It's everything: betrayal, doubt, hurt. I don't even know who I'm angry at anymore. Her, Ryan, myself for not seeing it sooner. Greg nodded, taking a long puff of his cigar. Marriage isn't easy. Hell, your mother-in-law and I have had our fair share of problems, but the question you've got to ask yourself is this: can you see a future with her? Because if you can't, it's time to walk away. But if there's even a chance, it's worth fighting for. Sam stared out at the horizon, Greg's words sinking in. Could he see a future with Hannah? Did he even want to? That night, Sam and Hannah sat down for yet another difficult conversation. This time, though, it felt different. Instead of rehashing the past, they talked about the future, what they wanted, what they were afraid of, and whether they could rebuild what had been broken. I don't know if I can forgive you, Sam admitted, his voice raw. But I do know that I don't want to lose the family we've built. I don't want to give up on us, if there's still something worth saving. Hannah's eyes brimmed with tears. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll do everything I can to earn it. I'll spend the rest of my life proving to you that I'm committed to us. For the first time in weeks, they shared a moment of genuine connection. It wasn't a resolution, but it was a step forward. Meanwhile, Ryan's actions were catching up to him. After Hannah had ignored his email, he made a series of reckless decisions that ultimately exposed his true character. An anonymous complaint was filed with his employer, detailing inappropriate relationships with multiple clients and colleagues, rumors that had been circulating for years. Whether it was coincidence or karma, Ryan found himself under investigation, his once promising career in jeopardy. Hannah heard about this through a mutual acquaintance, who casually mentioned it during a chance encounter at the grocery store. She chose not to share the news with Sam, realizing it was no longer her burden to bear. Her focus was on her family, not the man who had nearly destroyed it. The climax of Sam and Hannah's story came during a weekend getaway that Hannah had planned as a gesture of reconciliation. She had rented a small cabin by the lake, a place where they could escape the noise of their everyday lives and focus on each other. At first, the tension was palpable. They spent the first day making small talk, avoiding the deeper conversations that hung heavily in the air. But on the second night, as they sat by the fire with glasses of wine in hand, Sam finally opened up. "I don't know how we got here," he said, staring into the flames. "I don't know how I missed the signs." "It wasn't your fault," Hannah said softly. "I should have talked to you. I should have told you how I was feeling instead of running away from it." Sam nodded, the weight of her words settling over him. "I want to believe we can get through this. I really do, but it's going to take time, and it's going to take work from both of us." "I know," Hannah said, reaching for his hand, "and I'm ready for that." As the fire crackled and the night grew quiet, they shared a moment of tentative hope, a glimmer of what could be if they were both willing to fight for it. Before we move on to the resolution, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. What do you think about Sam and Hannah's journey so far? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned for the final chapter of this story. As the weekend at the lake cabin unfolded, the atmosphere between Sam and Hannah shifted in unexpected ways. On the surface, they were still two people trying to navigate the wreckage of their marriage, but beneath it all, there was an unspoken acknowledgement of the love they once shared. It wasn't an easy weekend, far from it, but it was a necessary one. On the second morning, Sam woke early and found Hannah sitting on the dock, wrapped in a blanket and staring out at the still water. She didn't notice him at first, and he stood there for a moment, debating whether to join her. In the end, he grabbed a mug of coffee and sat down beside her, the wooden boards creaking under his weight. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked, his voice breaking the quiet. Hannah shook her head. "I've been doing a lot of thinking." "About what?" She glanced at him, her expression soft but serious. "About us. About everything I've done to hurt you, and how I don't even know if I deserve a second chance." Sam didn't respond right away. Instead, he took a sip of his coffee, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Finally, he said, "It's not about what you deserve, Hannah. It's about what we both want. Do you want to fix this? Really fix it?" "Yes," she said without hesitation. "I know I messed up, but I love you, Sam. I've always loved you." Her words hit him like a punch to the gut, not because he didn't believe her, but because he wanted to. He wanted to believe that the woman sitting next to him was the same one he'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But there was a part of him that couldn't forget what she had done. "I don't know if love is enough," he admitted, his voice raw. "I want to believe we can get through this, but it's going to take more than words." "I know," she said quietly, "and I'm willing to do the work, whatever it takes." For the first time in weeks, Sam felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't a solution, but it was a start. Back in Clearwater, the fallout from Ryan's actions continued to spiral. The investigation into his workplace behavior had unearthed a pattern of inappropriate relationships, and his reputation was in shambles. When news of his suspension reached Hannah through mutual acquaintances, she felt a strange mix of relief and regret. While she didn't wish harm on anyone, she couldn't help but see Ryan's downfall as a reminder of how destructive their relationship had been. Hannah chose not to share the news with Sam, focusing instead on their ongoing counseling sessions and the small strides they were making to rebuild their relationship. But Sam wasn't entirely in the dark. He'd heard whispers about Ryan's troubles through his own network of friends, and while he didn't gloat, he couldn't deny the sense of justice it brought him. The real turning point came during a family dinner at their home, a deliberate effort by Sam and Hannah to create a sense of normalcy for Josh and Emma. It was the first time in months that they'd all sat down together as a family, and the kids were thrilled to have their dad home, even if only for a night. As they passed dishes around the table, Josh suddenly asked, "Dad, are you and Mom okay?" The question hung in the air, and both Sam and Hannah exchanged a glance. They had promised to shield the kids from the worst of their struggles, but Josh was perceptive, and there was no hiding the tension that had been brewing. "We're working on it," Sam said finally, his voice steady. "Sometimes grown-ups have things they need to figure out, but we love you and your sister very much. That's never going to change." Josh seemed satisfied with the answer, but Emma, who had been unusually quiet, looked up from her plate. "Does that mean you're going to stay home now, Daddy?" Sam's heart clenched at the question, and he felt Hannah's gaze on him, waiting for his response. "I'm not sure yet, sweetheart," he said gently, "but I'm here now, and that's what matters." The evening ended on a bittersweet note, with the kids heading to bed while Sam and Hannah cleaned up the kitchen in silence. As they stood side by side at the sink, washing dishes, Hannah finally spoke. "They miss you," she said softly. "We all do." "I miss them too," Sam replied, his tone guarded. "And me?" she asked hesitantly. Sam didn't answer right away. Instead, he set down the dish he was washing and turned to face her. "I'm here, aren't I?" It wasn't the answer she wanted, but it was enough to keep her hope alive. A few days later, Sam received an unexpected call from his boss, offering him a promotion to a management position. It was a significant pay raise and would allow him to work fewer hours, giving him more time with his family. But the offer came with a catch. The job required him to relocate to a neighboring city. Sam found himself at a crossroads. The promotion was an opportunity to provide a better life for his kids and escape the painful memories tied to Clearwater, but it also meant making a decision about his future with Hannah. That evening, he brought up the offer during their counseling session. "I got a promotion," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "It's a good opportunity, but it means moving." Hannah's face fell, but she quickly composed herself. "Do you think that's what you need to leave?" "I don't know," he admitted, "but I think it's something I need to consider." Their counselor encouraged them to explore the decision together, focusing on what it would mean for their family and their relationship. For Hannah, the thought of losing Sam again was almost too much to bear, but she also knew that pushing him to stay wouldn't help rebuild the trust they were trying so hard to restore. "Whatever you decide," she said quietly, "I'll support you. I just want you to be happy." As Sam weighed his options, he found himself reflecting on the progress they had made. The hurt and anger were still there, but so was a glimmer of the connection they once had. Their counseling sessions had helped them communicate more openly, and Hannah's consistent efforts to rebuild trust hadn't gone unnoticed. One evening, as he sat alone on the back porch, staring up at the stars, Sam realized that the decision wasn't just about the job. It was about whether he was willing to let go of the past and move forward with Hannah. And in that moment, he knew what he needed to do. The next morning, Sam told Hannah his decision. "I'm going to take the promotion," he said, his voice steady. "But I don't want to leave. I want us to make this work." Hannah's eyes filled with tears, and she threw her arms around him, holding him tightly. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for giving us a chance." Sam held her close, feeling a sense of relief and hope he hadn't felt in months. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was a step toward a new beginning. Before we wrap up this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us bring you more incredible stories like this one. What do you think of Sam's decision? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned for the emotional conclusion to this journey. The decision to stay and make things work marked a turning point for Sam and Hannah, but the road ahead was far from smooth. They both knew that rebuilding their relationship would take more than words. It would take time, patience, and a level of honesty neither of them had truly mastered before. The first real test came just a few weeks later. Sam had started his new management position, and while the reduced hours allowed him to spend more time at home, the responsibilities weighed heavily on him. One evening, after a particularly stressful day, he arrived home to find the kids arguing over the TV remote, while Hannah struggled to get dinner on the table. "Hey!" Sam barked, his voice sharper than intended. "Can we all just calm down?" The room went silent. Josh and Emma exchanged nervous glances, while Hannah froze, her back to him. The tension hung in the air like a storm cloud. "I'm sorry," Sam said, his voice softer now. "It's been a long day." Hannah turned to face him, her expression a mixture of understanding and weariness. "I get it, but you don't have to carry everything alone, Sam. We're supposed to be a team, remember?" Her words hit a nerve, and for a moment, Sam felt the old walls rising, the instinct to shut down and push her away. But instead of retreating, he took a deep breath and nodded. "You're right. I'm sorry." It was a small moment, but it marked a shift in their dynamic. For the first time in a long time, they were learning to lean on each other, instead of letting their frustrations drive them apart. Meanwhile, Ryan's story was taking a darker turn. After being suspended from his job, he began spiraling into self-destructive behavior. Mutual acquaintances shared rumors of heavy drinking, erratic behavior, and angry outbursts. When Hannah heard that Ryan had been seen outside their kids' school one afternoon, her blood ran cold. She immediately called Sam, who was at work. "Sam, I just got a call from the school. Someone saw Ryan near the playground." "What?" Sam's voice was sharp, his protective instincts kicking in. "Is everyone okay?" "Yes," Hannah assured him. "The school staff called the police and he left before they arrived. But I'm scared, Sam. What if he tries to come here?" "Stay home, lock the doors. I'll be there as soon as I can," Sam said, already grabbing his keys. When Sam arrived home, he found Hannah pacing the living room, her face pale and drawn. "What do we do, Sam?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What if he doesn't stop?" "We'll deal with it," Sam said firmly. "But first, we're calling the police. This ends now." Filing a restraining order against Ryan was a sobering experience for both Sam and Hannah. It forced them to confront the lingering shadows of the affair and the ways it had spilled over into their family's safety. But it also served as a turning point, solidifying their resolve to protect what mattered most: their kids and each other. For the next several weeks, they worked together to create a sense of security and stability at home. They installed a security system, updated their emergency contacts, and made a point of communicating more openly about their fears and concerns. It wasn't easy, but it brought them closer in ways they hadn't expected. One evening, as they sat on the back porch watching the kids play in the yard, Sam turned to Hannah and said, "I never thought we'd get here." "Neither did I," she admitted, her voice soft. "But I'm glad we did." Sam nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. "Me too." For the first time in months, the future didn't feel so uncertain. They still had a long way to go, but they were finally moving in the right direction. Together. But the real test came one crisp autumn evening, when the family attended Josh's championship baseball game. The stands were packed, the air buzzing with excitement as parents cheered for their kids. For Sam, it was a moment of pride and joy, watching his son step up to the plate with determination in his eyes. The game was tense, with both teams neck and neck until the final inning. When Josh hit the winning home run, the crowd erupted in cheers, and Sam found himself jumping to his feet, shouting louder than anyone. After the game, as the family celebrated with the team, Sam caught a glimpse of Hannah watching him from across the field. Their eyes met, and for a moment, everything else faded away. In that instant, he saw not the woman who had betrayed him, but the one he had built a life with, the one who had fought to earn back his trust. Later that night, as they put the kids to bed, Sam turned to Hannah and said, "I'm proud of us for everything we've been through, and for not giving up." Hannah's eyes filled with tears, and she nodded. "Me too." But just as things were starting to fall into place, an unexpected twist threatened to unravel their progress. One afternoon, Sam received a call from the police. Ryan had been arrested for public intoxication and harassment, and during his questioning, he made a shocking claim that he had evidence of Hannah's involvement in his workplace misconduct. When Sam confronted Hannah about it, she was visibly shaken. "I don't know what he's talking about," she said, her voice trembling. "I had nothing to do with that." Sam wanted to believe her, but the seeds of doubt had been planted. Once again, he found himself questioning everything, unsure of who or what to trust. Their counselor encouraged them to confront the issue head-on, emphasizing the importance of honesty and transparency. "The past has a way of creeping back in," she said, "but how you handle it now will determine whether you move forward or fall apart." In the end, it turned out Ryan's claims were nothing more than a desperate attempt to drag Hannah down with him. The police found no evidence to support his accusations, and he was charged with defamation and harassment. For Sam and Hannah, it was a bitter reminder of how fragile their progress could be, but it was also a victory, proving that their commitment to honesty and accountability was stronger than the shadows of the past. The climax of their journey came not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet moment of understanding. One evening, as they sat by the fireplace, Sam turned to Hannah and said, "I don't know if I'll ever forget what happened, but I do know that I want to move forward. With you." Hannah reached for his hand, her eyes filled with gratitude. "I'll never stop trying to make things right, Sam, I promise." As the fire crackled and the room filled with warmth, they both knew they still had a long way to go. But for the first time in months, they felt like they were on solid ground, a place where forgiveness, love, and hope could finally take root. Before we dive into the resolution of this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. What are your thoughts on Sam and Hannah's journey? Let us know in the comments below, and stay tuned for the final chapter of their story. Sam and Hannah's quiet moment of reconciliation by the fireplace wasn't the end of their struggles. It was the calm before the storm, just when it seemed like the pieces of their shattered life were slowly falling back into place. A new challenge arose that threatened to undo all the progress they had made. It began with an innocuous-looking envelope in their mailbox. Sam found it on a rainy Tuesday morning, tucked between bills and a grocery store flyer. The return address was unfamiliar, but as he opened it and began reading, his stomach dropped. Inside was a typed letter, along with several grainy photographs of Hannah and Ryan together, some at Bella's, others in a parking lot, and one particularly damning one of them embracing outside the cabin. The letter was unsigned, but the message was clear. Someone wanted to remind Sam of Hannah's betrayal, to sow doubt where trust was beginning to take root. Sam sat at the kitchen table, staring at the photos, a mixture of anger and heartbreak bubbling inside him. When Hannah walked in a few minutes later, carrying a basket of laundry, she froze at the sight of his expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, setting the basket down. Without a word, Sam slid the letter and photographs across the table. Hannah's face turned pale as she looked at them, her hands trembling. "Sam, Who sent these?" Sam interrupted, his voice low but filled with controlled fury. "Why now?" "I don't know," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "It could be Ryan or... I don't know." Sam stood abruptly, pacing the kitchen as he ran a hand through his hair. "Why does this keep coming back every time I think we're moving forward? Something drags us right back." "I don't know," Hannah said again, tears streaming down her face. "But I promise you, I haven't spoken to Ryan, I haven't done anything. You have to believe me." Sam stopped pacing and looked at her, his eyes filled with both frustration and pain. "I want to believe you, Hannah. I really do. But this just brings it all back." Hannah stepped closer, her voice trembling but determined. "Then let's face it together. Whoever sent this wants to hurt us. They want to tear us apart, but we can't let them win." That evening, Sam and Hannah sat down together, determined to figure out who might be behind the letter. Hannah reached out to her old mutual friends with Ryan, asking if anyone had heard from him recently. Sam, meanwhile, called the police to report the harassment and ask for guidance. It was a painstaking process, but it brought them closer as they worked side by side to protect their family. The next day, Sam received a call from the police. They had tracked the letter to a local printing shop, where security footage showed Ryan picking up a package that matched the envelope's description. It was the confirmation Sam needed, but it didn't bring the relief he had hoped for. Instead, it left him with a simmering anger that he couldn't shake. The confrontation with Ryan happened sooner than expected. A few days later, Sam was at the hardware store when he spotted Ryan in the parking lot, leaning against his car, as if waiting for someone. Sam's blood boiled at the sight of him, and before he could think twice, he was marching across the lot. "Ryan!" he called out, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. Ryan looked up, his expression shifting from surprise to smugness. "Sam, fancy seeing you here." Sam stopped a few feet away, his fists clenched at his sides. "I know what you did. The letter. The photos. You're trying to destroy my family." Ryan shrugged, feigning innocence. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Cut the crap," Sam snapped. "The police know it was you. You're pathetic. You know that you've already lost, and this is all you have left. Petty games." Ryan's smirk faltered for a moment, but he quickly recovered. "You think you've won, Sam. You think she's really done with me. You're just the safe option, the fallback." Sam stepped closer, his voice low and dangerous. "You can tell yourself whatever you want, but Hannah made her choice, and it wasn't you." For a moment, it seemed like Ryan might lash out, but instead, he simply sneered and got into his car. As he drove away, Sam felt a surge of adrenaline, mixed with a strange sense of closure. For the first time, he realized that Ryan wasn't the threat he had built him up to be. The real battle was within himself, learning to trust again, despite everything. When Sam told Hannah about the confrontation, she was visibly shaken but also relieved. "I'm sorry this keeps coming back to haunt us," she said, taking his hand. "But I'm proud of you for standing up for us." Sam nodded, his grip tightening around hers. "It's not just about standing up to him. It's about standing up to the doubt, the fear. I don't want to let it control me anymore." The turning point came during their next counseling session, where the focus shifted from the past to the future. Their counselor asked a simple but profound question. "What do you want your life to look like 5 years from now?" For Sam, the answer wasn't about erasing the pain or pretending the betrayal never happened. It was about building something stronger, something honest. For Hannah, it was about proving, every day, that she was committed to their family. "I want to look back and know that we didn't let this define us," Sam said, his voice steady, "that we fought for something worth saving." Hannah nodded, her eyes filled with determination. "And I want to be the wife and mother you deserve. No more lies, just us." The climax of their journey came not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet moment of shared understanding. One evening, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset, Sam turned to Hannah and said, "I forgive you." Hannah's breath caught, her eyes brimming with tears. "You do?" Sam nodded, his voice calm but firm. "That doesn't mean I've forgotten, and it doesn't mean everything is perfect, but I'm tired of holding on to the anger. It's time to move forward." Hannah reached for his hand, her grip firm and steady. "Thank you," she whispered, "for giving us a chance." As the sun dipped below the horizon, they sat in silence, the weight of the past finally lifting. It wasn't a perfect ending, but it was the beginning of something new, something worth fighting for. Before we wrap up this emotional journey, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. What do you think of Sam and Hannah's story so far? Let us know in the comments, and stay tuned for the final chapter as we bring this story to a close. In the weeks following Sam's decision to forgive Hannah, life began to take on a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect, and there were moments when the weight of their shared history resurfaced, but they were learning to navigate it together. The letter and photographs from Ryan had initially shaken them, but now they saw them for what they were: a desperate, failed attempt to sow discord. With the restraining order firmly in place and Ryan's legal troubles mounting, he faded from their lives, leaving Sam and Hannah to focus on rebuilding what mattered most. One of the most pivotal moments in their journey came during a weekend family trip. They packed the car and headed to a small cabin by a different lake, not the one where they'd had their first reconciliation, but somewhere new, symbolizing a fresh start. Josh and Emma were ecstatic, their laughter filling the car as they played road trip games. For Sam and Hannah, it was a chance to reconnect, not just with each other, but with the family they had worked so hard to protect. On the second evening, after the kids had fallen asleep, Sam and Hannah sat outside by a campfire. The air was cool, the stars bright above them. It was the kind of serene moment they hadn't shared in years. Sam poked at the fire with a stick, his mind drifting to everything they had been through. "You know," he said, breaking the silence, "there was a time I didn't think we'd get here." Hannah looked at him, her expression thoughtful. "Me neither, but I'm glad we did." Sam nodded, tossing the stick into the flames. "I still think about it sometimes, about what happened, but it doesn't hurt the way it used to." "That's because you've let it go," Hannah said softly, "and I'll never stop being grateful for that." They sat in silence for a while longer, the fire crackling between them. For the first time in a long time, they felt like partners again, equals, working toward the same goal. Back in Clearwater, their lives slowly settled into a new normal. Sam embraced his new role at work, finding fulfillment not just in the pay raise, but in the sense of balance it brought to his life. He made it a point to attend every one of Josh's baseball games and Emma's school plays, determined to be present for the moments that mattered. Hannah, too, found ways to grow. She joined a local support group for individuals who had made mistakes in their relationships and were working to rebuild trust. Sharing her story with others helped her process her guilt and find ways to move forward. She also took up painting, something she had always loved but never made time for. It became a form of therapy, a way to channel her emotions into something positive. One afternoon, as they were cleaning out the attic together, Sam stumbled upon an old photo album. He dusted it off and opened it, revealing pictures from their early years, awkward prom photos, snapshots from their honeymoon, and countless candid moments of their growing family. He handed it to Hannah, who smiled wistfully as she flipped through the pages. "Look at us," she said, pointing to a picture of them on the beach, their arms wrapped around each other. "We had no idea what we were doing, did we?" Sam chuckled. "Not a clue, but we figured it out." As they sat together, reminiscing about the past, they both realized how far they had come, not just as a couple, but as individuals. The mistakes, the pain, and the challenges had shaped them, but they hadn't defined them. They had chosen to fight for each other, and that choice had made all the difference. The final chapter of their story came during a family barbecue at Mark's house. It was a sunny afternoon, the yard filled with the smell of burgers on the grill and the sound of kids laughing as they played tag. Sam and Hannah moved easily through the crowd, chatting with friends and keeping an eye on Josh and Emma. At one point, Mark pulled Sam aside, handing him a cold beer. "You look good, man," he said, clinking his bottle against Sam's. "Like you've got the weight of the world off your shoulders." Sam smiled, taking a sip. "It's not all gone, but it's a lot lighter." Mark nodded, his expression serious. "You did the hard thing. You know most people would have walked away." "Trust me, I thought about it," Sam admitted. "But at the end of the day, I couldn't not, when there was still something worth fighting for." "And now?" Mark asked. "Now," Sam said, glancing at Hannah across the yard, "I'm glad I stayed." As the sun set that evening, Sam and Hannah found themselves sitting together on Mark's porch swing, watching the kids chase fireflies in the yard. The golden light bathed everything in a warm glow, and for the first time in a long time, Sam felt at peace. Hannah leaned her head against his shoulder, her voice soft. "Thank you for not giving up on us." Sam wrapped an arm around her, pulling her close. "We didn't give up on us," he corrected. "We fought for it together." And in that moment, they both knew they had made the right choice, not just for themselves, but for their family. So there you have it, the story of Sam and Hannah, a couple who faced betrayal, doubt, and heartbreak, but found their way back to each other through forgiveness and determination. Their journey wasn't easy, but it was a testament to the power of love, honesty, and second chances. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Your support means everything to us, and it helps us bring you more stories like this one. What did you think of Sam and Hannah's journey? Let us know in the comments below, and as always, thank you for watching. See you in the next video.